R/AITA daughter used me as free childcare, so I exposed her medical secret. AITA for exposing my daughter's medical secret after she used me as free childcare? I'm still shaking as I write this. What I did at Sunday dinner might have just blown up my entire family, but I can't be the only one who thinks my daughter had it coming. Let me back up. I'm 58, been looking forward to retirement for years. My daughter Emma is 32 with 2 kids, Tyler, 7, and Sophie, 4. About 8 months ago, she came to me practically in tears, saying she desperately needed help with childcare because her work schedule had changed. Her husband travels constantly for business, and she claimed she couldn't afford a nanny or daycare on top of their mortgage. Being the devoted grandmother I am, I immediately said yes. Every weekday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., sometimes later. I rearranged my entire life. Cancelled my book club, postponed the European cruise I'd been planning with my sister, turned down volunteer opportunities. These kids became my whole world, and honestly, I loved spending time with them. But something felt off. Emma would pick them up looking perfectly put together, fresh manicure, new clothes, that expensive purse she claimed she couldn't afford. When I'd ask about work, she'd give vague answers. Oh, busy day at the office. She works in marketing for a mid-sized company, nothing that should require 11-hour days consistently. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I was at Target and saw Emma's coworker Janet in the pharmacy line. We'd met at a few company events, so I went over to chat. I mentioned how proud I was of Emma for handling such a demanding new schedule. Janet looked confused. New schedule? Emma's been working part-time since March. Same 3 days a week she's done for over a year. My blood went cold. I pressed gently, and Janet confirmed it. Emma works Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9 to 3. That's it. I drove home in a rage. All those days I thought I was helping my hardworking daughter. She was out getting spa treatments, meeting friends for lunch, shopping, doing God knows what. Using me like some free nanny service while I put my own life completely on hold. I confronted her that evening. Instead of apologizing, she got defensive and angry. Said I was overreacting and that she needed personal time to decompress. Personal time? Try 40 hours a week of personal time while grandma plays Cinderella. I told her this arrangement needed to change immediately. Either she starts paying me, or we work out a schedule that actually matches her real work days. She rolled her eyes and said, Mom, don't be dramatic. You love spending time with the kids anyway. That dismissive attitude pushed me over the edge. For months, she'd been taking advantage of my love for my grandchildren, manipulating my guilt and generosity while living her best life. When I tried to set boundaries, suddenly I was being dramatic. Which brings me to yesterday's family dinner at my sister's house. Emma was there with the kids, playing the part of the overwhelmed working mother, accepting everyone's praise for juggling it all so well. I watched her lap up the sympathy and admiration, and something inside me snapped. That's when I opened my mouth and revealed something I definitely shouldn't have. Something Emma had told me in confidence during one of our heart-to-heart conversations months ago, back when I thought we had an honest relationship. Now Emma isn't speaking to me, half the family thinks I'm a monster, and I might lose access to my grandchildren forever. But honestly, I'm not sure I care anymore. So Reddit, AITA? I can see some of you are asking what exactly I revealed, and I guess I need to own up to the full scope of what I did. About 4 months ago, Emma and I were having one of our weekly coffee dates. Back then, I still thought she was this struggling working mom trying to balance everything. She seemed stressed, kept rubbing her temples, and I asked if she was okay. That's when she broke down and told me she'd been seeing a therapist for anxiety and had started taking medication. She made me promise not to tell anyone, especially not her dad or my sister Carol. See, our family has some old-fashioned views about mental health. Her grandfather on her father's side always said therapy was for weak people who couldn't handle life, and unfortunately, that attitude trickled down. Emma was terrified the family would judge her or think she was unstable. I was actually proud of her for seeking help. I told her there was no shame in it, that she was being responsible. We had this beautiful moment where I felt closer to her than I had in years. So yesterday, when I watched her accepting all that praise and sympathy at dinner, playing up how overwhelming her life was, I lost it completely. You know what's really overwhelming? I said, loud enough for the whole table to hear. Watching my daughter lie to everyone while I sacrifice my retirement to babysit her kids so she can play hooky from her part-time job. The table went dead silent. Emma's face went white. But I wasn't done. The words just kept pouring out. Maybe if Emma wasn't so busy hiding the fact that she's on anxiety medication and seeing a therapist twice a week, she could have an honest conversation about what she actually needs instead of manipulating everyone around her. I can still see the look of absolute betrayal in Emma's eyes. Her husband Mark just stared at his plate. My sister Carol's mouth fell open. Emma's father-in-law, who was visiting for the weekend, raised his eyebrows and muttered something under his breath about emotional instability. Emma stood up so fast her chair fell backward. How could you? She whispered, then grabbed the kids and rushed out. Mark followed, shooting me a look of pure disgust. The aftermath was immediate and brutal. Carol pulled me aside and said I'd crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. My brother-in-law actually called me vindictive. Even my own husband, who's been mostly supportive through this whole childcare nightmare, said I went too far. But here's what's eating at me. I keep getting texts from Emma's mother-in-law asking if the kids are safe with someone who's mentally unstable. Emma's father-in-law apparently told Mark's whole side of the family about the medication, because he was concerned about the children's well-being. This morning I found out Emma called in sick to work, her actual 3-day-a-week job, and hasn't been answering calls from anyone. Mark texted me saying the kids are asking why grandma can't come over anymore and Emma's been crying for 2 days straight. My sister thinks I should apologize immediately and beg forgiveness. My husband says I need to fix this before it's too late. Part of me knows they're right, that I weaponized Emma's vulnerability in the cruelest possible way. But another part of me is still so angry about being used and manipulated for 8 months. She took advantage of my love for those children and my desire to help family. When I tried to address it reasonably, she dismissed me like my feelings didn't matter. I just never expected the fallout to be this nuclear. And I definitely didn't think about how it would affect Tyler and Sophie. Maybe I really am the monster everyone thinks I am. The worst part about blowing up your family is how the shrapnel keeps hitting you days later. It's been 72 hours since Sunday dinner, and I'm discovering just how thoroughly I've destroyed everything. Emma's best friend Sarah called me yesterday. Apparently Emma had a panic attack at the grocery store and had to abandon her cart in the cereal aisle. A panic attack. Because of what I did. Sarah didn't mince words. She trusted you with the most vulnerable part of herself, and you turned it into ammunition. Do you have any idea how hard it was for her to even admit she needed help? I hung up on her, but her words have been echoing in my head ever since. This morning brought a new nightmare. My phone rang at 6 a.m. It was Mark, and he sounded exhausted. We need to talk, he said. My parents are flying in tomorrow. They want to discuss custody arrangements if Emma has a breakdown. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, custody arrangements? My dad's been doing research about anxiety medication and therapy. He's convinced Emma's having some kind of mental health crisis. He keeps talking about how his cousin lost custody of her kids during her divorce because of her psychological issues. The irony hit me like a sledgehammer. I'd been so angry about Emma manipulating me that I'd handed Mark's already judgmental family the perfect weapon to use against her. His parents never liked her much anyway, thought she was too independent, too career-focused before the kids came along. Mark, that's ridiculous. Emma's not unstable, she's just Dash. Just what, Linda? Just secretly taking medication you felt compelled to announce to everyone? Just lying about her work schedule for months? Because from where my parents are sitting, that looks like deception and instability. The call ended with Mark informing me that I won't be seeing Tyler and Sophie until this situation stabilizes. Whatever that means. But it gets worse. This afternoon, I ran into Emma's boss at the coffee shop downtown. Apparently, word has already spread through Emma's company about Sunday's drama. Janet, the coworker I'd spoken to at Target, had heard about it through the family gossip chain. I hope Emma knows her job is secure, Mr. Peterson said carefully. We value employees who take care of their mental health. But I have to ask, is there anything we should be aware of? Any reason to be concerned about her? Stability? I stared at him, realizing that my moment of vindictive rage might now be threatening Emma's employment too. In one dinner conversation, I'd potentially damaged her relationships with her in-laws, put her custody at risk, and now possibly her career. The kids have been calling my house. Tyler called twice yesterday asking when I'm coming over, if I'm mad at mommy. Sophie got on the phone and sang me the song we've been practicing for her preschool program, the one I'll probably never get to see now. My husband has been sleeping in the guest room. I love you, he said last night, but I can't look at you right now without thinking about what you've done to our family. My sister Carol isn't taking my calls. Emma's father-in-law left a voicemail asking if I thought Emma was fit to parent given her emotional problems. And Emma? Still nothing. No calls, no texts, no responses to my messages. I keep drafting apologies, but how do you apologize for weaponizing someone's vulnerability? How do you take back words that have already poisoned half the family against your own daughter? The Europeans cruise brochure is still on my kitchen table, the one I postponed to help with childcare. Now I have all the free time in the world and absolutely nowhere I want to go. I think I'm finally understanding the difference between revenge and justice. And I'm starting to realize I chose the wrong one. The consequences of my actions keep spiraling in ways I never imagined. It's been a week since Sunday dinner, and today brought the phone call I've been dreading most. Mrs. Henderson? This is Rebecca Martinez from Child Protective Services. We received a report regarding your daughter Emma's household, and I need to schedule a welfare check for the children. My legs gave out. I sank into my kitchen chair, staring at that damn cruise brochure still mocking me from the table. A report? What kind of report? Someone called in concerns about a mother experiencing mental health issues, possible medication dependency, and erratic behavior. I can't share details about who made the report, but we're required to investigate when children's safety might be at risk. I knew exactly who had called. Mark's father, with his research about anxiety medication and his cousin's custody battle. The man who'd been asking if Emma was fit to parent had taken the next logical step. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen for an hour, paralyzed by what I'd set in motion. CPS was going to knock on Emma's door because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Those beautiful children, Tyler with his gap-toothed grin, Sophie with her endless questions about butterflies, were going to watch strangers examine their home, their mother, their entire life. I called Mark immediately. He answered on the first ring, which told me he'd been expecting this. They're coming tomorrow, he said flatly. Emma doesn't know yet. She's already barely holding it together, and now this. Mark, you have to know this is insane. Emma's a wonderful mother. She takes care of those kids better than anyone, Dash. Do I know that? Because according to you, she's been lying for months. According to you, she's unstable and manipulative. So which Emma am I supposed to believe in, Linda? The devoted mother, or the deceptive woman you described to my entire family? His words cut deep because they were fair. I painted Emma as untrustworthy and unstable, and now everyone was simply believing the picture I'd created. Where will you be during the visit? I asked. Flying back from Denver. I had to cut my business trip short, which my company wasn't thrilled about. Emma will face this alone, thanks to you. After we hung up, I made a decision that probably proves I've learned nothing from this disaster. I drove to Emma's house. Her car was in the driveway, but when I knocked, no one answered. I could hear Tyler's voice inside, probably watching cartoons. I rang the doorbell, knocked harder, called out that it was just Grandma. Finally, the door opened, but only barely. Emma stood there in pajamas at 3 p.m., her hair unwashed, eyes red and puffy. She looked like she'd aged 5 years in 1 week. What do you want? Her voice was hoarse. Emma, sweetie, we need to talk. CPS is Dash. I know about CPS. She stepped back like I was contagious. Mark's dad made sure to tell everyone he was protecting the children from an unstable environment. Congratulations, Mom. Your revenge tour is complete. This wasn't what I wanted. You have to believe me. What did you want? Her laugh was bitter. Because you got everything you said you needed. No more free childcare, no more manipulation. You're completely free now. I wanted honesty. I wanted you to treat me with respect. And I wanted a mother who wouldn't destroy my life when she got angry. Emma's voice cracked. Tyler asked me yesterday why you hate mommy now. How exactly do I explain that grandma decided to punish me by telling everyone my private medical information? Before I could answer, she closed the door in my face. I sat in my car outside her house for 20 minutes, watching the windows, hoping for a glimpse of my grandchildren. When Tyler's face appeared briefly in the living room window, he waved excitedly before someone, probably Emma, quickly pulled him away. Tomorrow, strangers will knock on that door asking if those children are safe. And it's entirely my fault. The CPS visit happened this morning, and somehow I know every agonizing detail despite not being there. Emma's neighbor Mrs. Chin called me around noon. Linda, I hope you know what you've done, she said without preamble. I watched those people go through Emma's house for 2 hours. 2 hours. Tyler came outside crying, asking if they were taking him away from mommy. My hand started shaking. Did they? Did they find anything wrong? Of course they didn't find anything wrong. Emma's house is spotless, those children are healthy and happy, and she's a wonderful mother. But that little boy is traumatized now, and Sophie hasn't stopped clinging to Emma since they left. After Mrs. Chin hung up on me, I paced my empty house like a caged animal. The silence was deafening, no Tyler asking for help with puzzles, no Sophie demanding I read Goodnight Moon for the 15th time. Just me and the consequences of my choices. Then my phone rang. Emma. It's over, she said without greeting. They cleared the case. Turns out anxiety medication prescribed by a licensed doctor and therapy sessions don't actually make someone an unfit parent. Shocking, right? Emma, I'm so sorry. Save it. I'm calling because the kids won't stop asking about you, and I need you to understand something. Tyler told the social worker that grandma used to make the best pancakes, but now she hates mommy. A 4-year-old and 7-year-old think their grandmother hates their mother because you couldn't control your temper. The guilt hit me like physical pain. Let me talk to them. Let me explain. Explain what? That you betrayed my trust because you were angry? That you've turned their safe world upside down over a scheduling dispute? It wasn't just scheduling, Emma. You lied to me for months. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. You're right, she finally said. I did lie. I lied because I was drowning, Mom. Mark's gone 3 weeks out of every month. I was having panic attacks in grocery stores. Some days I could barely get the kids dressed and fed, let alone handle a full-time job. My stomach clenched. Why didn't you just tell me that? Because I was ashamed. Because admitting I was struggling felt like admitting I was failing as a mother. So yes, I took those extra days to go to therapy, to sit in my car and cry, to try to pull myself together enough to be the mother Tyler and Sophie deserve. Emma. I'm not done. You know what I did on those days you thought I was getting spa treatments? I sat in parking lots having anxiety attacks. I went to therapy appointments where I cried about feeling like a terrible mother. I drove around for hours because I was too overwhelmed to go home and pretend everything was fine. Each word felt like a slap. You could have told me. I would have helped differently if I'd known. No, you wouldn't have. You would have told me to pull myself together, just like you always do. Just like you did when Dad died and I was struggling in college. Just like you did when I had postpartum depression after Sophie. Buck up, Emma. Life is hard for everyone. The accuracy of that statement knocked the breath out of me. So I lied, Emma continued. I let you think I was working because it was easier than admitting I was falling apart. And you know what? Those 8 months of having your help, having someone I trusted watch my children while I got my mental health together, it saved our family. Then why are you so angry? Because when you found out, instead of asking why I felt I couldn't tell you the truth, you decided to destroy me. The line went dead, and I realized that my daughter was right about everything. The next morning brought a complication I never saw coming. My doorbell rang at 8 a.m., and I opened it to find a woman in a business suit holding a briefcase. Mrs. Henderson? I'm Patricia Kelman, attorney with Davidson and Associates. I represent your daughter Emma in a potential defamation case. My coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering across the entryway tiles. What? May I come in? We have quite a bit to discuss. I led her to my living room on unsteady legs, my mind racing. Emma was suing me? Her own mother? Your daughter has asked me to explore legal options regarding the disclosure of her private medical information, Ms. Kelman said, settling into my armchair like she owned it. What you did could constitute a violation of her privacy rights, particularly given the professional and personal damages she suffered. Professional damages? Oh, you're not aware. Ms. Kelman pulled out a file. Your daughter was passed over for a promotion she'd been promised for months. Apparently, her supervisor had concerns about her reliability and emotional stability following rumors about Sunday's dinner. She's also lost 2 potential freelance clients who heard through mutual connections that she was dealing with mental health issues. The room spun. Emma's career was suffering because of what I'd done. But that's discrimination. They can't fire someone for taking medication. They're not firing her. They're just making her professional life difficult. Creating a hostile environment. Questioning her judgment. These things are hard to prove but easy to do. Ms. Kelman's smile was sharp. However, we can prove that you disclosed private medical information with malicious intent to damage her reputation. I wasn't trying to damage her reputation. I was angry about being lied to. And yet the result is the same, isn't it? Your daughter is now facing scrutiny about her mental health from her employer, her in-laws, and Child Protective Services. All stemming from your public disclosure. I sank deeper into my couch. What does Emma want? Initially, she wanted me to pursue this aggressively. Sue for damages, seek an injunction preventing you from further disclosure of her private information, possibly even pursue criminal charges for harassment. Criminal charges? My voice came out as a whisper. However, Ms. Kelman continued, your daughter is more interested in resolution than litigation. She's proposed terms for avoiding legal action. She handed me a document that might as well have been written in a foreign language. Legal jargon swam before my eyes, but certain phrases jumped out, cease all contact, written agreement, supervised visitation only. She's cutting me off from my grandchildren legally? She's protecting herself and her family from further damage. The terms are actually quite reasonable. No contact with your daughter except through a mediator. Any future relationship with your grandchildren would be supervised and contingent on you completing family counseling and anger management. Anger management? I stood up abruptly. I don't have an anger problem. I have a daughter who manipulated me for months. Ms. Kelman's expression didn't change. Mrs. Henderson, your daughter's medical records show she started therapy specifically to deal with anxiety about asking for help. Her therapist's notes indicate she was terrified to tell family members about her struggles because she feared judgment and retaliation. The words hit me like ice water. You've seen her therapy notes? With her permission, yes. It's rather heartbreaking, actually. Session after session of her talking about feeling like a failure, about being afraid to disappoint you, about lying being easier than facing your disapproval. I stared at the legal document in my hands, seeing my relationship with Emma and the kids reduced to supervised visits and court orders. How long do I have to decide? 48 hours. After that, we proceed with litigation. Ms. Kelman gathered her papers and headed toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, your daughter cried when she asked me to draft this. She doesn't want to sue her own mother. But she also can't risk you weaponizing her vulnerabilities again. After she left, I sat surrounded by the broken pieces of my coffee mug, wondering how 8 months of childcare had led to lawyers and lawsuits. My phone buzzed with a text from my sister, heard about the lawyer. You need to fix this before it's too late. But looking at those legal papers, I wondered if it already was. The 48-hour deadline was ticking in my head like a bomb when my husband finally broke his silence. I found him in his study at midnight, staring at his computer screen with that lawyer's document spread across his desk. I've been doing research, David said without looking up. About grandparents' rights, about defamation law, about what you've actually done here. I sat down across from him, noting how he still wouldn't meet my eyes. And? Emma could destroy you in court, Linda. Completely destroy you. He finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before, disappointment so deep it felt like contempt. Do you know that anxiety medication disclosure alone could cost us $20,000 in damages? That's just the starting point. My mouth went dry. 20,000? Her therapy notes apparently document months of her saying she was afraid to tell you the truth because you'd react exactly like you did. Her therapist is prepared to testify that your reaction was precisely the kind of family rejection that worsens anxiety disorders. David pulled up a legal website on his screen. But here's the real kicker, Emma's been documenting everything since Sunday dinner. Screenshots of family members asking if she's stable enough to parent. Emails from her boss expressing concerns. Text messages from Mark's parents discussing custody arrangements. She's been building a case against me this whole time? She's been protecting herself while her own mother systematically destroyed her reputation. His voice was flat, matter of fact. There's more. Mark's parents have apparently consulted their own attorney about getting temporary custody during Emma's mental health crisis. A crisis you created by announcing her private medical information. The walls felt like they were closing in. They can't actually take the kids away. Maybe not permanently, but they can make her life hell trying. And guess who's going to be called as a witness to testify about Emma's deceptive behavior and emotional instability? The answer hit me like a physical blow. Me. You painted the picture, Linda. Now everyone else is just filling in the colors. David turned back to his computer, and I realized our marriage might be another casualty I hadn't calculated. Are you going to leave me over this? I don't know. His honesty was brutal. I keep thinking about Tyler and Sophie, and how you potentially damaged their relationship with their mother permanently. Sophie's 4, Linda. She doesn't understand why Grandma suddenly isn't around, why Mommy cries all the time, why strangers came to look through her toys. Before I could respond, my phone rang. Emma's number. Mom? Her voice was thick with tears. Something's happened. My heart stopped. Are the kids okay? Tyler's teacher called me in for a conference. He's been acting out at school, getting aggressive with other kids. Today he told his classmate that Grandma hates my mommy because she takes sick pills. The shame was suffocating. Emma, I'm so sorry, Dash. He asked Mrs. Rodriguez if the sick pills made me a bad mommy. A 7-year-old is questioning whether his mother is fit to take care of him because of what you did. I could hear Tyler's voice in the background asking something, and Emma's muffled response before she came back to the phone. The school counselor wants to meet with our whole family. She's concerned about instability in the home environment affecting Tyler's behavior. Mark's parents are flying in tomorrow for an emergency family meeting about the children's well-being. Each sentence was another weight on my chest. What can I do? Tell me how to fix this. I don't think you can, Emma whispered. I don't think any of us can fix what you broke. The line went dead, and I stared at David, who'd heard every word. 48 hours, he said quietly. You have 48 hours to sign those papers, or she takes you to court and this gets infinitely worse. Outside, it started to rain. The rain was still pounding against my windows when my sister Carol finally returned my calls at 6 a.m. I'd been awake all night, staring at those legal papers, and her voice was the first human contact I'd had since Emma hung up on me. Linda, what the hell have you done now? No greeting, no pleasantries. I just got off the phone with Aunt Margaret. She's heard about the CPS visit, the lawyers, all of it. The whole family is talking. My stomach dropped. Aunt Margaret was the family matriarch, the one whose opinion mattered to everyone. What's she saying? She wants to know if Emma's children are safe. She's asking if we need to stage an intervention. Carol's voice was sharp with frustration. An intervention, Linda. She thinks Emma might be having some kind of breakdown because her own mother announced she was mentally unstable. I never said she was unstable, Dash. You told everyone she was on anxiety medication and seeing a therapist, then called her manipulative and deceptive in the same breath. What exactly did you think people would conclude? Before I could answer, Carol continued. Margaret's calling a family meeting for this weekend. She wants to assess the situation and decide if the family needs to step in for the children's sake. The coffee I'd been drinking turned to acid in my stomach. Step in how? How do you think? She's talking about Mark's parents getting temporary custody while Emma gets help. She keeps saying the children shouldn't suffer because their mother is troubled. I sank into my kitchen chair, watching the rain blur everything outside my window. In trying to expose Emma's lies, I'd convinced my entire family that she was an unfit mother. Carol, you know Emma's a wonderful mother. You've seen her with those kids. Have I? Because according to you, she's been lying for months, manipulating everyone around her. You made her sound like a master manipulator who can't be trusted with basic honesty. The worst part was that Carol was right. I'd been so focused on my own hurt feelings that I'd painted Emma as fundamentally dishonest and unstable. Margaret wants you at the family meeting too, Carol added. She has questions about what you observed during all those months of childcare. Whether you noticed signs of Emma being unwell. Signs of what? Neglect. Emotional instability. Inappropriate behavior with the children. Carol's voice was getting colder. She wants to know if there were red flags you missed because you were being too generous with your assessment. The implication hit me like a slap. They wanted me to testify against Emma, to find problems that didn't exist, to justify their growing belief that my daughter was an unfit mother. I won't do that. I won't lie about Emma's parenting. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you convinced everyone she was a liar who couldn't be trusted. After Carol hung up, I sat staring at my phone, realizing the scope of what I'd unleashed. It wasn't just Mark's parents anymore, my entire extended family was now questioning Emma's fitness as a mother. All because I couldn't keep my mouth shut when I was angry. David appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work. Pack a bag, he said quietly. What? Pack a bag. I'm staying at my brother's for a while. I can't watch you destroy what's left of this family. As he walked away, I heard him mutter something that stopped my heart. Those poor kids don't deserve any of this. The house felt impossibly empty after he left, and I realized that in trying to punish Emma for lying, I'd lost everyone who mattered to me. Including myself. The family meeting was set for Saturday at Aunt Margaret's house, and by Thursday afternoon, I was getting calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Each conversation made it clear that the narrative about Emma had taken on a life of its own. My cousin Janet called around lunchtime. Linda, I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Mom told me about Emma's situation. Is it true she's been hiding a drug problem? Drug problem? Janet, she takes anxiety medication prescribed by her doctor. Right, but Mom heard from Carol that she was acting erratically, lying constantly. And didn't someone say she abandoned her card at the grocery store? That sounds like withdrawal or something. I tried to explain, but Janet had already formed her conclusions. The story had mutated from Emma takes anxiety medication to Emma has a drug problem somewhere in the family telephone chain. Then my nephew called with even worse news. Aunt Linda, I thought you should know, there's been talk about getting the state involved permanently. Cousin Mike's wife works for family services in the next county, and she's been asking questions about whether Emma's case was handled properly. My blood went cold. What kind of questions? Whether the initial investigation was thorough enough. Whether there might be ongoing safety concerns that weren't addressed. She keeps saying that children shouldn't be left with parents who are psychologically compromised. I hung up and immediately called Emma, but it went straight to voicemail. When I tried Mark's number, he answered on the first ring. Linda, please tell me you're not calling to make this worse. Mark, I just heard about Mike's wife getting involved. You have to know this is insane. Emma's not a danger to anyone. Try convincing my parents of that. They've been researching residential treatment facilities all morning. They think Emma needs intensive help and the kids need stability while she's getting it. The words felt like ice in my veins. Residential treatment? For anxiety? They're not just talking about anxiety anymore, Linda. Thanks to your family's telephone game, Emma's now supposedly struggling with prescription drug dependency, having psychotic episodes, and showing signs of severe mental instability. I sank onto my couch, staring at the legal papers that were still sitting on my coffee table. That's not what I said. That's not what happened. Doesn't matter what you said anymore. The story's taken on its own life. Mark's voice was exhausted. Emma's been throwing up all morning from anxiety. She can barely function, knowing that half our family wants to take her children away because her own mother convinced everyone she's dangerous. Let me talk to her. Let me fix this. You can't fix this, Linda. Do you know what Emma told me last night? She said she wishes she'd never asked you for help in the first place. That she should have struggled alone rather than trust you with her vulnerability. After Mark hung up, I called my lawyer, something I never thought I'd need to do regarding my own family. He confirmed my worst fears. Mrs. Henderson, you need to understand that this situation is spiraling beyond your control. If multiple family members file complaints with child services, if they petition for emergency custody, your daughter could lose her children before any of this gets sorted out legally. But that's insane. Emma's a good mother. Unfortunately, the court system doesn't always move quickly enough to prevent damage. Especially when there's a coordinated effort by concerned family members who believe children are at risk. I realized that my moment of vindictive anger had created a monster that was now completely beyond my ability to control. Emma wasn't just facing a damaged relationship with me anymore, she was facing the potential loss of her children because I'd convinced everyone who mattered that she couldn't be trusted. The deadline for signing those legal papers was tomorrow, and suddenly they looked less like punishment and more like Emma's desperate attempt to protect herself from what I'd unleashed. Friday morning, one day before the deadline to sign Emma's legal agreement, one day before Aunt Margaret's family tribunal, I woke up to my worst nightmare becoming reality. My phone was buzzing at 5:47 a.m. Mark's number. They took them. His voice was hollow, broken. My parents filed an emergency petition yesterday. They have temporary custody of Tyler and Sophie. The words didn't make sense. I sat up in bed, my heart hammering. What do you mean they took them? Emergency custody hearing. My parents presented evidence of Emma's deteriorating mental state, her history of deception, the CPS investigation. They had character witnesses, including statements from 3 family members who attended your aunt's preliminary meeting yesterday. What meeting? But even as I asked, I knew. Aunt Margaret had clearly moved faster than anyone expected. They didn't just wait for Saturday, Linda. Margaret organized a conference call Wednesday night with the concerned family members. They documented everything: Emma's lies about work, her secret medication, your observations about her erratic behavior during childcare. My mouth went completely dry. I never said she was erratic. I never dash. Doesn't matter what you said anymore. Margaret's written statement to the court described Emma as deceptive, emotionally unstable, and potentially dangerous to the children's well-being. She cited you as the primary source. I stumbled to the kitchen, my legs barely holding me up. Where are the kids now? At my parents' house. Tyler's been crying for his mommy since yesterday afternoon. Sophie keeps asking when they're going home. Mark's voice cracked. They don't understand why strangers took them away from their mother. And Emma? Sedated at the hospital. She collapsed when the social workers came to the house. Complete panic attack, couldn't breathe. The emergency room doctor had to give her something to calm her down. The kitchen spun around me. Emma was hospitalized, the children were gone, and it was all because I couldn't control my temper at a Sunday dinner. Mark, you have to fight this. You're their father, Dash. I'm trying, but I'm also the husband of the unstable woman who's been lying to her own family. My parents are arguing that I've been enabling Emma's deception, that I can't be trusted to protect the children from her influence. Before I could respond, there was a knock at my front door. Through the peephole, I saw two people in business suits, one carrying a briefcase, the other holding an official-looking folder. Mrs. Henderson? We're from the Department of Children and Family Services. We need to speak with you about your grandchildren's custody case. I opened the door with shaking hands, and they entered like they owned the place. We understand you've been the primary caregiver for Tyler and Sophie Henderson for the past 8 months, the woman said, settling into my living room. We need your assessment of their mother's fitness to parent. The irony was suffocating. They were here because of what I'd said, asking me to elaborate on the very accusations that had destroyed my family. Their mother is wonderful with those children, I heard myself say. The social workers exchanged glances. That's not consistent with the reports we've received. Multiple family members have expressed concerns about Emma Henderson's mental stability, her pattern of deception, and her ability to provide appropriate care. Those reports are based on a misunderstanding. Mrs. Henderson, we have documentation of your statements regarding your daughter's erratic behavior, her lies about employment, and your concerns about her mental health treatment. Are you now recanting those observations? I stared at them, realizing that telling the truth would contradict everything I'd already set in motion, but continuing the lie would ensure Tyler and Sophie stayed separated from their mother. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma's lawyer. Custody hearing moved to Monday. Your testimony will be crucial. Please call immediately. The social workers were still waiting for my answer, their pens poised over official forms that would help determine whether my grandchildren ever got to go home again. I stared at those social workers, their pens hovering over forms that would seal my grandchildren's fate, and made the hardest decision of my life. I need to correct some misunderstandings, I said slowly. Emma is an excellent mother. What I said at dinner was taken out of context. The male social worker frowned. Mrs. Henderson, we have multiple witness statements about your concerns regarding your daughter's deception and mental instability. Are you saying those witnesses misrepresented your words? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Aunt Margaret's number. I declined the call, but it immediately rang again. Then my sister Carol. Then my cousin Janet. It was like they could sense I was about to undermine their carefully constructed case against Emma. I need to speak with my daughter's lawyer, I told the social workers. And I need to see my grandchildren. That's not possible right now. The children are in protective custody pending the hearing on Monday. We need your official statement today. The female social worker pulled out a recording device. For the record, please describe your observations of Emma Henderson's parenting and mental state during the 8 months you provided childcare. My mouth went completely dry. Every word I said would either condemn Emma further or contradict the narrative that had already convinced a judge to remove Tyler and Sophie from their home. I started, then stopped. Through my front window, I could see Mrs. Chen from Emma's neighborhood walking her dog. She'd witnessed the CPS visit, seen Tyler crying, watched my family's destruction unfold in real time. That's when it hit me. Mrs. Chen had called me after the first CPS visit, angry about what I'd done. She'd seen Emma with the children constantly, knew better than anyone what kind of mother Emma really was. I need to make some phone calls, I told the social workers. There are witnesses who can provide a more complete picture. We're not here to investigate further, Mrs. Henderson. We're here for your statement about what you observed. My phone buzzed with another text, this one from a number I didn't recognize. This is Patricia Kelman, Emma's attorney. Emergency custody hearing moved to 9 a.m. Monday. Your family statements are being used to justify permanent removal. Emma needs you to tell the truth. The weight of that text nearly knocked me over. Permanent removal. Not just temporary custody while things got sorted out, they were planning to take Tyler and Sophie away from Emma forever. I looked up at the social workers, realizing that my next words would determine whether my grandchildren grew up with their mother or with Mark's parents who'd orchestrated this entire nightmare. Before I give any statement, I said carefully, I want to understand exactly how my words are being used in this case. Because if my family has misrepresented what I said, I need to set the record straight. The social workers exchanged another look. Mrs. Henderson, are you suggesting that multiple family members have lied to authorities about your statements? That was exactly what I was suggesting, but saying it out loud would mean accusing Aunt Margaret, Carol, and half my extended family of fabricating evidence to steal Emma's children. My phone rang again. This time it was David, calling from his brother's house. Linda, please tell me you're not making this worse. Mark called me, the kids are asking for their mother and their grandmother. Tyler won't stop crying. The image of Tyler crying for me while being kept from his mother because of my actions was the final straw. I looked directly at the recording device and made my choice. I need to tell you what really happened that night at dinner, and why everything my family has told you about Emma is wrong. The recording device seemed to grow larger as I stared at it, knowing that my next words would either save Emma or damn her forever. But before I could speak, my front door burst open. Don't say another word, Linda. Aunt Margaret swept into my living room like an avenging angel, my sister Carol right behind her. We need to speak privately. The social workers looked annoyed. Ma'am, we're conducting an official interview. And I'm the family spokesperson who organized the documentation of Emma's concerning behavior, Margaret announced with the authority she'd wielded over our family for decades. I have additional evidence that needs to be presented before any statements are made. My heart sank as Margaret pulled out a thick folder. What kind of evidence? Phone records showing Emma's erratic communication patterns during her supposed work hours. Credit card statements proving she was spending money frivolously while claiming financial hardship. And most importantly, witness accounts of her bizarre behavior in public places. Carol stepped forward, looking uncomfortable but determined. Linda, we know you feel guilty, but protecting Emma won't help those children. Yesterday Tyler told Mark's mother that mommy cries in the bathroom and talks to herself. That's not normal behavior. He's 7 years old, I protested. He doesn't understand dash. Sophie told them that mommy takes sick pills and that's why she acts sad, Margaret interrupted. Children don't lie about what they observe, Linda. Emma's medication is clearly affecting her ability to parent effectively. The male social worker was taking notes rapidly. These are concerning observations. Mrs. Henderson, did you witness any of these behaviors during your childcare period? I felt trapped between truth and family loyalty, between saving Emma and contradicting people who'd been manipulating the narrative for days. Emma was dealing with normal stress dash. Normal stress doesn't require psychiatric medication and extensive therapy, Margaret cut in. Linda, you told us yourself that Emma was deceptive and manipulative. Are you really going to pretend otherwise now just because you feel guilty? The female social worker leaned forward. Mrs. Henderson, we need clarity. Were you concerned about your daughter's mental state and behavior, yes or no? Before I could answer, my phone rang with a call that changed everything. Unknown number, but when I answered, a small voice said, Grandma? Tyler? My voice broke hearing my grandson's scared whisper. Grandma, I'm hiding in the bathroom. The strange people say we can't go home until Mommy gets better. But Mommy wasn't sick, she was just sad because you were mad at her. Can you tell them Mommy's not sick? Margaret tried to grab the phone from me, but I held tight. Tyler, sweetie, where are you? At the people's house who have lots of pictures of Daddy when he was little. Sophie's crying because she wants Mommy to read bedtime stories. The lady here doesn't know the voices for our books. The sound of Tyler whispering and Sophie crying in the background shattered something inside me. These weren't children being rescued from danger, they were confused, frightened kids torn away from their mother because adults had gotten carried away with accusations and assumptions. Tyler, I dash. The line went dead. Someone had clearly discovered his secret phone call. I looked up at the social workers, at Margaret's expectant face, at Carol's worried expression. The recording device was still running, waiting for my official statement about Emma's fitness as a mother. But now I'd heard Tyler's voice, heard Sophie crying for the bedtime stories Emma read every night with different voices for each character. I'd been reminded that this wasn't about family drama or hurt feelings anymore. This was about two children who just wanted to go home to their mother. Grandma, please don't let them keep us here, Tyler had whispered, and those words were still echoing in my head when Margaret snatched my phone away. That's enough, she declared, powering it off. Linda, you're being manipulated by a 7-year-old who's been coached by his unstable mother. The social workers were watching this family drama unfold with professional detachment, but I could see them taking notes about our dysfunction. Every word Margaret spoke was digging Emma's grave deeper. Mrs. Henderson, the female social worker said firmly, we need your statement now. The recording has been running for 20 minutes. I opened my mouth to tell the truth about Emma's excellent parenting, but Margaret's voice cut through the room like a blade. Before Linda speaks, you should know that we've discovered Emma has been in contact with the children against court orders. That phone call was proof of ongoing manipulation and disregard for legal boundaries. My stomach plummeted. What are you talking about? Tyler called me. Emma obviously gave him the number and told him what to say, Carol added, though she looked uncertain. Why else would a child call asking you to tell them Mommy's not sick unless he'd been coached? The male social worker was writing furiously. Coaching children to make unauthorized contact is a serious violation. This suggests the mother is attempting to interfere with the protective custody order. Tyler wasn't coached. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. He's a frightened child who wants his mother. A child who's been exposed to his mother's emotional instability for months, Margaret countered smoothly. Linda, you've already told us Emma was deceptive and manipulative. Children learn those behaviors from their parents. The recording device sat there like a judgment machine, capturing every word of this nightmare. I realized that Margaret and Carol had orchestrated this entire scene, showing up during my interview, bringing additional evidence, positioning themselves as the rational voices while I looked like I was either lying or being manipulated. Mrs. Henderson, the female social worker said, given this new information about unauthorized contact, we need to expedite your statement. What did you observe about Emma Henderson's parenting during your 8 months of childcare? The room fell silent except for the soft whir of the recording device. Margaret's eyes were boring into me, reminding me of every family loyalty I'd ever owed her. Carol looked torn between supporting the family narrative and her growing doubt about what we'd unleashed. But then my phone buzzed with a text that changed everything. David had somehow gotten it from Margaret and was holding it out to show me the screen. Emergency, Emma hospitalized again. Severe panic attack after learning about Tyler's phone call being used as evidence. ICU won't let Mark see her. Kids asking why Mommy's in hospital. The words hit me like physical blows. Emma was in intensive care because Tyler's innocent phone call had been twisted into more ammunition against her. My grandchildren now thought their mother was so sick she needed hospital machines, all because Margaret had turned a scared child's cry for help into proof of parental manipulation. Mrs. Henderson, the social worker prompted. Your statement? I looked at the recording device, then at Margaret's satisfied face, then at the text about Emma fighting for her life in the ICU because the stress of losing her children had literally broken her body. I need to see my daughter, I said quietly. Before I say another word about anything, I need to see Emma. Margaret's expression turned ice cold. Linda, if you don't cooperate with this investigation, you'll lose any chance of maintaining a relationship with those children. The threat hung in the air like smoke, and I realized I was at the moment that would define the rest of all our lives. Your statement, Mrs. Henderson, the social worker repeated, her finger hovering over the recording device's stop button. I stared at that little red light, knowing my next words would either save or condemn my daughter forever. But before I could speak, David burst through the front door, his face white with panic. Linda, we need to get to the hospital. Now. He looked at the social workers, then at Margaret's frozen expression. Emma's in cardiac arrest. The stress triggered some kind of heart episode. The recording device clattered to the floor as I stumbled backward. Cardiac arrest? She's 32 years old. Severe anxiety can cause heart palpitations, especially combined with panic attacks and sleep deprivation, David explained rapidly. Mark's at the hospital. He's talking to doctors about whether the children should be brought in to say goodbye. Say goodbye. The words echoed in my head like a death sentence. My daughter might die because I couldn't control my anger at a family dinner. Margaret's face had gone completely pale. That's not possible. She was just having anxiety issues. Anxiety issues that escalated because her children were ripped away from her, David shot back. Because her own family convinced a judge she was dangerous. The female social worker was already packing up her equipment. Mrs. Henderson, we'll need to reschedule this interview. Given the medical emergency, the custody hearing may be postponed. No, I said firmly, surprising everyone including myself. Don't postpone anything. I want to give my statement right now, before we go to the hospital. Margaret stepped forward. Linda, you're in shock. You shouldn't make any official statements until you have more time to coach me? I turned to face the social workers directly. I want everything on record before my daughter potentially dies believing her own mother destroyed her life. The social workers exchanged glances but set up the recording device again. This is highly irregular, but given the circumstances. For the official record, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. Emma Henderson is an exceptional mother who was struggling with postpartum anxiety and asked for help in the only way she felt safe to do so. Margaret's sharp intake of breath was audible, but I continued. I was angry about being misled about her work schedule, but I've witnessed 8 months of Emma's parenting firsthand. She is patient, loving, devoted, and completely appropriate with her children. Tyler and Sophie are not in danger from their mother, they're traumatized by being separated from her. Linda, stop, Carol whispered, but I was beyond stopping. The erratic behavior my family has described doesn't exist. Emma sought therapy and medication responsibly when she recognized she needed help. The only dangerous thing in this situation is a family that turned a scheduling dispute into a character assassination campaign. The male social worker was writing frantically. Mrs. Henderson, are you saying the previous statements from family members were inaccurate? Before I could answer, my phone rang again. Mark's number. Linda? His voice was breaking. They got her heart rate stabilized, but she's unconscious. The doctors are asking about her mental health history because they need to understand what triggered this. They want to know if she's been under unusual stress. I looked directly at the recording device. Yes, she's been under unusual stress. Her children were taken away based on exaggerated claims about her mental health, and she's been fighting for her life trying to get them back. Margaret's composure finally cracked. Linda, do you understand what you're doing? If you contradict our statements, it makes the entire family look like we fabricated evidence. Did we fabricate evidence, Margaret? The question hung in the air like an accusation, and I realized that in trying to save Emma, I was about to expose the depths of my family's coordinated campaign against her. The silence in my living room stretched until it felt like a living thing. Margaret's face had gone from pale to red, and I could see the exact moment she realized I was about to tear down everything she'd built. You want to know what evidence we fabricated? I continued, looking directly into the recording device. Emma never showed signs of erratic behavior. She never neglected her children. She never acted inappropriately with them in any way. What she did was trust her mother enough to share that she was getting professional help for anxiety, and I weaponized that trust when I felt betrayed. Linda, please Carol started, but I held up my hand. My family took my moment of vindictive anger and turned it into a coordinated campaign to remove 2 children from their loving mother. We turned anxiety medication into a drug problem. We turned therapy sessions into psychological instability. We turned a mother's tears over losing her children into evidence of her unfitness to parent. The female social worker set down her pen. Mrs. Henderson, are you stating for the record that the emergency custody order was based on false information? My phone buzzed with another text from David at the hospital. Emma's awake. First thing she said was, are my babies okay? Heartbreaking watching her ask for children she thinks she's lost forever. That text gave me the strength to finish what I'd started. Yes, I said clearly. The emergency custody order was based on false and exaggerated information. Tyler and Sophie Henderson should be returned to their mother immediately, and anyone who participated in this character assassination should be investigated for filing false reports. Margaret stood so abruptly her chair toppled backward. Linda, you've just destroyed this entire family. Do you understand that? No, Margaret. I've just told the truth about what we destroyed 8 months ago when my daughter asked for help and we all failed her. The social workers were already packing up, promising to expedite their report to the emergency family court judge. Within minutes, my living room was empty except for Margaret, Carol, David, and me. The children will be returned to Emma within hours, I told Margaret. And if you ever interfere with her parenting again, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly how you manipulated this situation. Margaret gathered her purse and her dignity, both somewhat tattered. This family will never be the same. Good, I replied. Maybe that's exactly what we needed. After they left, David and I drove to the hospital in silence. We found Emma sitting up in bed, pale but alert, with Mark holding her hand while Tyler and Sophie clung to either side of her. Grandma. Sophie launched herself at me, and I caught her small body against mine, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. Mommy's okay, Tyler announced solemnly. The doctors fixed her heart, and they said we get to go home tonight. Emma looked at me over Tyler's head, her eyes full of questions and wariness and something that might have been hope. I told them the truth, I said simply. All of it. And? Her voice was barely a whisper. And you're an amazing mother who deserved better from all of us. I sat down in the chair beside her bed, Sophie still in my arms. I can't undo what I did, Emma. But I can spend the rest of my life proving that I know exactly how wrong I was. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time in weeks, they looked like healing tears instead of broken ones. Can we start over, Mom? I squeezed Sophie tighter and reached out to touch Tyler's hand. I'd like that more than anything in the world. Outside the hospital room, I could hear the sounds of a normal evening, families going home together, children laughing, the ordinary beautiful chaos of life continuing. We were going to be okay. All of us. Finally.